What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique. I'm the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and it's my pleasure to speak to two of the people who are principally responsible for bringing WWE 2K22 to a very eager and sometimes anxious fan base. My man Lynell, Jinks, and Christina, Diem, Pham. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. I'm doing great, at least. Lynell, how about you?
I'm fantastic. Every time I talk to you, Brian, I'm having a fantastic day.
You know what? I've heard that multiple times over my life. Maybe, okay, three times, but it's cool. You guys are both smiling like you have a pretty strong game coming out, which is a good thing. I've talked to a lot of developers in my career, and sometimes I read the body language, right? And you have that interview before the game comes out, and their faces don't look like y'all's. Like y'all don't have like stress lines of worry in your eyes and stuff. So that's a good sign. It could be wrong, but it's a good sign. It's a good sign. So tell me something. I'm going to ask you guys, if you had to describe the gameplay for WWE 2K22 and you had to kind of summarize it, in consideration with where we've been before with the game in the series, how would you break that down, Christina?
I would break it down. So for myself personally, and for newer players, the game is so much fun and accessible. The goal of WWE 2K22 is to, one, make it so that newer players such as myself and those who are interested in playing wrestling games, you'd be able to pick it up and play it. And that we'd absolutely hit that goal for sure. However, for much more seasoned players such as yourself and others, you can dive deeper into the strategy of it as well. So someone who picks it up for the first time can button mash if they want to. And then someone who's been around for a while longer can definitely learn the very specific movesets of the various superstars. Lynell, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, Lynell, because I also wanted to ask, there was a brief kind of dip the toe into the esports water with the last version of WWE 2K. And so do you see that the gameplay could potentially have a skill gap that is recognizable enough to maybe evolve into something like that?
So when you were saying, like, the one word I would use is competitive, right? Okay. Like that when Christina kind of, touched on that, where yeah, it's easy to pick up and play, and you can still have a great time and be competitive with a seasoned player because, with combos, and we know button mashers exist, right? And they will take advantage of that. But if you're deep and you understand the game, now that we have a block mechanic, now that we have dodge and combo breakers, right? And no more reversal stock, right? Like the matches can be so competitive, right? Like, to me, like, we all know, like, in previous years, you knew that when you got someone down to where they used their last finisher and you had a finisher left or a stig, you're like, oh, I got him. It's game over, right? Good luck, like, kick it out of the the little sliver. Where now, like, button pressing for button mashing for pins is in there, right? So you're button mashing. So to me, it feels way more competitive, and the matches. Like, to me, it's like watching a WWE match. Like, I would say like a SummerSlam match where someone gets suplexed 15, 18 times, right? Where it's just like, man, it keeps going and going if you're that good, right? And to me, we're trying to mitigate all those things that used to, people used to cheese, but like, but it's still fun at the end of the day. Like, I love the fact that, if I'm playing against Christina, even though I might be a little bit more, seasoned, like, we both have a good time, but there's that unpredictability of, like, she might beat me, right? You just never know.
Okay. So how similar is the gameplay to some of the old classic wrestling games that many fans like hold so dear to the heart? Because I've always had this theory, right? A lot of times game fans ask for certain things in games, but they don't realize they don't really want that exactly the way it was because they haven't taken into consideration that there's been 25 years since that happened. So what I think they really want is they want to feel the way they felt then. Yes. So the challenge of the developer is to create a mechanic that gives the same feeling, not the exact same system. So how does it feel similar to that way?
I mean, with like, I think you summed it up perfectly. We stand every year we put out a game, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like like we're looking at what people have done in previous, not only wrestling games, but more current fighting games, like what you might see in the action-packed games with superheroes and things like that. And like the games have evolved so much in the 25 years, and since that one game that people keep talking about has existed. And like you're saying, like they think they want that, but yeah, they want that feeling, they want that. To me, it's all about, and do I understand the controls enough to get the result that I'm looking for, right? And but also have that depth and that competitiveness. And we've, to me, I think we've hit that. Like, I mean, it is like what Christina said. Like when you pick it up, I'm I know it's our tagline, but it hits different. Like it straight up hits different, and it's undeniable. Where I think in previous games where we would mess with the controls and say, oh yeah, new control scheme, you're like, no, they just move some buttons around and change this up a little bit. No, this is completely different. The pace is different. Like the controls are different. The fact that you have to learn, like, what combos do, and they're different for every superstar. It's almost like the old school days of you opening up, those Prima guides and looking for like, oh, how do I perform this move? Like that's the kind of depth that we've introduced into this game. And to me, it's the foundation that we're going to build on for years to come. We're not going to abandon it, right? Like I feel confident in saying like, this is the one.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things is that the WWE games have a chance to do from a gameplay standpoint is kind of live on the line between two different genres. So you get to make a fighting game essentially with sports themes or with a sports type of spin to it. So in fighting games, the whole challenge and the coolness of it is the learning the nuances of the different characters. And the characters have different archetypes, and it fits in this and this and that. But in a WWE game, you have this big wide arena that they're able to fight in, and sometimes use all this different stuff. So it's like a real cool thing. But at the same time, I think that is where the challenge comes in. So I'm interested, in kind of a feel for how it flows. So I'm going to ask you about. And Lynell knows this from my time spending, whenever I've come to the events. Like at one time I'm sitting there and they're showing us the game. I can't remember which version this is. I think it was like 19. And it was a year randomizer was created.
19.
Okay. So I'm sitting there and they're like, okay, do you want to see the game? And I'm sitting there creating characters like back to back to back to back. I'm just that way. I don't know why, but I'm a creation guy.
Like Chicken Fried Joe, and like you were coming up with names for it and everything.
I can't even remember. That's so bad. I spent so much time and I can't even remember the details of what I made. But what can be customized in WWE 2K22? So we know obviously you can make creative wrestlers. Arenas, I'm assuming, are back, and championship belts. Is there anything else that can be customized or created?
No, for us, like we looked at the Creation Suite and we looked at everything that we gave to users in previous years and took a hard look at we pretty much offered everything, right? And the things that we felt like we were offering, for the most part, were solid but flawed, right? We saw it in previous iterations that by giving people too much freedom, now you're messing with quality, right? Like, and so we would, I remember you going through randomization, and there'd be some that you would like and laugh at, but then there was some where you would laugh at in a bad way, right? And so in order for us to mitigate that, we had to put certain constraints on things to make sure that quality bar is on par with, like we talk about evolution, with the games of today, right? You look at what our partners at NBA 2K are doing with their career mode and their customization, and there was that gap, right, in quality, and we see like they didn't have as many options as we had as far as being able to customize, but that quality bar, their players that they were customizing looked as good as the NBA players, and there was always that disconnect with us, right? When you look at our what you would build in cast versus a John Cena or Roman Reigns or Undertaker, and then we made this big jump in our quality and our superstars already with this year using that same scanning technology that we have from NBA over to WWE, and you see it with the videos and the screenshots. Like, it's a huge jump. And that separated us even more, right? And so like we poured our efforts into like, you saw the big boy body, like making sure that all those things that people want, they want that Yokozuna body type, or, you know, they want the cast bodies to look as good as the superstars. So that's what we did. We focused on making sure that we're providing the users with high quality artwork that they can go and customize to their heart's content. Now with that, we had to make certain concessions, like, hey, maybe the blending of two body types, that was causing a ton of issues. And we saw it in previous games where like the cloth would explode or the robe would explode or you would see clipping everywhere, right? Like that to me is not quality, right? And again, games are evolving to where people are, I would say people are less accepting of those types of issues, right? And they just want something that looks great, right? And so that was our responsibility, is to make sure that what you're seeing on screen doesn't break you from that, you know, that reality that we're trying to present to you, right? The illusion of, you know, you feeling like you're a superstar or you're bringing one of your best creations into the match and all of a sudden it's blowing up. Like, you know, that's not what we set out to make. We set out to make a great looking game with a ton of creativity. But in doing so, yeah, we had to remove some things. But to me, it's, you look at like some of the things that we were able to pull off and it's night and day from what we've ever done.
Yeah, and Lynell, and I know a lot of people, some people may not know this, but like you're an artist. So from an artist eye, that critique on the visual component of a game is probably going to be even stiffer from you than it might be from somebody else, because artists see things in like from, because this is art. Gameplay, visuals is art. And so an artist is going to see that differently. So yeah, I definitely receive that and what you're saying. So there was one particular creation point. Well, first, before I say that, is randomizer still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's I'm that in my mind. That's the Brian Mazique feature.
Okay.
Like when we debuted it, you were the only one at that event that popped so hard for it. I'm like, that's the BM. That's the BM feature right there.
Okay. I was about to go through. I was about to have one, so I didn't know what was going to happen.
But,
okay,
so and I think we built on top of that. So like, you know, with, you know, you look at like what we've done with randomizer, and yeah, there's, you know, a ton of options that you can go and just randomizing and put on, but we know that that wasn't fitting the bill for a lot of people, and we want that entry level for a lot of users to be frictionless as possible. And so what we added this year was the personas, right? So when you first start up, there's these predetermined personas that, you know, I created along with some of the other designers that like, hey, you know, and they're categorized in different, in different, you know, occupations or different personas. Like, you know, like they'll be like, you know, fantasy or future or whatever, you know, whatever it may be. And it's starting off like you'll have like 4 to 6 options of like, oh, this is a really cool outfit that, you know, I made up, and I'm like, oh, that looks dope. I'm going to put that in the game. And so that's a preset. So like, if you want to just go in quickly and just assign something that looks cool because you're intimidated by the amount of creativity that, you know, is at your disposal, you can quickly get in and get out and get into the matches, or use that as a starting point and then randomize maybe the feet or the boots or, you know, like whatever it may be. And be like, okay, cool. Like now I feel good about my creation and go into it. And it's less intimidating, because I think for me, guys like you who are experts at using the Creation Suite are the ones that are populating a lot of the stuff we see on community creations. And I felt like that entry level for, you know, more inexperienced users was just like, nah, I don't feel confident with my abilities. And so to me, I felt like we bridged that gap.
Yeah, you know, I really think WWE Series has done such a good job creating a tool for a community that, in my opinion, just extends the longevity of every single game that comes out in the version. The WWE community creations, that whole community is, in my opinion, one of the strongest in any video game, like across the industry. The work, the stuff that those guys and girls do, like literally, like I'm telling you, I'm talking like 10 hours after a pay-per-view, they're making little alterations on the side of Seth Rollins's pants. Like, it's like crazy. And I'm like, this is like dope. And like the fact that 2K realizes that this community is an asset to them, and they give them the tools that they need just by creating dope, you know, a dope creation suite. I think that is really phenomenal, honestly.
Well, like I forgot to mention, so you said, did we add anything to the creation suite? And I think this is the one that, you would appreciate, and those, you know, those men and women who do, you know, upload so many creations on, like you're saying, the day, you know, 10 hours after a pay-per-view or day one on launch, you'll see like, you know, just so much like good content and great content up on our site. But the biggest disconnect is, you know, we've always had when we used portraits in the past and in our menus is, you know, hey, here's a really great picture that, you know, we curated of Seth Rollins, and then here's your render of your cast model. And this year, I am proud to announce that we have custom images that you can use in the menus. So for a character select screen, you can put a photo of Brian Mazique, you know, standing there flexing, kissing his bicep, right next to the good picture of Seth Rollins.
They can put Chocolate Thunder up there, baby. Yes, that's right. No, I think that's dope. But, you know, honestly, there's a feature that I read about in, you know, some of the data that came that is related to Creation Suite that I think honestly is even bigger than that one. Cross-platform sharing.
Oh yeah. I like, it's been, yeah, we've done so much. I just forget.
That's crazy because first and foremost, the MLB The Show community, they usually do a really good job with sharing. They did that in terms of, you know, when they just went to Xbox for the first time this year. And so now all of this stuff there, you can get theirs. And I thought that was a huge thing. And for you guys to do that now is great because they're guys who are, you know, creating stuff on the Xbox side that some people who only have a PlayStation, they're not even aware that that stuff is even being created. And so they have to hope that someone on PlayStation side creates some of the same content. And so now this just unifies everybody creating WWE 2K content, which I think is a good thing altogether. So I'm really excited about that. But the one feature that you didn't mention, and I'm thinking it's probably because it's not in there, is create a finisher.
It is not. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, like there's so many things that, you know, we look at that used to be in those past games, and you look at like the good and the bad, right? I know like with create a finisher in previous games, a lot of people complain about like, you know, blending and you know, like the artificial looking things or overpowering things or things that, you know, users could cheese, right? Like, so with all those things to consider and everything we've done this year, you're like, do we try to introduce a feature like that where we probably will have those same type of issues, and we're trying to, you know, every year we're pushing to like make us, you know, this game is a simulation, right? Like, you know, we have our arcade version with Battlegrounds, and we are the simulation. And so every year we're trying to, you know, really fine tune that balance between, you know, excessive controls, fun, and it's still a sim, right? And so, and realism. So, by introducing something like that where, you know, they're blending between all these different animations, and like it could be, you know, it could lead to an unfair advantage to someone. Like it takes a lot of time and effort to look into. So not saying it's off the table forever, but like with everything that we've done this year, we felt like it was safer for us to like, you know, focus on the things that we have on our plate right now, and then start, you know, looking at those types of features from the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, man, I just used to love to create these hugely theatrical, like pre-contact moves. Like I dance around in a circle, spin around 3 times, but then the actual move would just be
Chocolate Thunder.
It was fantastic. So, but yeah, you know, that is a feature that I really wish it was there. But I hear you. And a lot of times, I think as fans, we don't sometimes understand how one thing that seems to be seemingly disconnected or unrelated can be affected in the game because you changed one thing. And that is something that from my conversations and, you know, even, you know, just dealing with developers that I do know that I mean, you might think as a fan that, oh, if you just do this, it's this, and that's just it. Okay, well, you don't realize that if I do that, that's going to break 9 other things in the game.
Oh,
so
that you just summed up game development in general. That's it. Like, right? Like you change one thing and you don't know the knock-on effects, right? Where it's just like, and to me, you also described it really well. Where what this game is, it's like it's a fighting game, but yet you can go anywhere damn near, right? And so you're like, oh, so you can also climb on the top rope, which you can't really do in, you know, a traditional 2D fighter, or you can go outside the ring, or you can interact with this table, or climb this ladder, or put this thing up here and go on the ramp and then head backstage. Like, there's so much. To me, it's like, it's more like a, you know, old school Power Stone or Bushido Blade, like those games where you still had combat, but like you can go anywhere, and it presents so many more challenges, and we welcome that challenge. But once you introduce one new thing, you have to make sure it works in every single one of those scenarios.
Yeah. I can understand. Okay, so let's talk about MyGM, one of the most requested things in the world, and it's so crazy, right? Because I'm all involved with the MyGM hype, and I love it because I'm a franchise mode kind of guy. I love it, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm thinking, do people really know what exactly they want from this feature? Like, I know we want control, and we want to make this stuff, and we want to do all this. We want to create our own shows, but do we know what we really, really want? If we did like a poll, and I love the fact that Patrick put out those polls and the poll results, I thought that was fire. Like, it was, to me, it was exactly the type of open communication that was needed after a game comes out that the community doesn't like. That is, to me, was perfect, right? So my question is my first question about MyGM is, how does it differ from the universe mode that we've always had?
So it's completely different. It's a totally separate engine, totally separate UI. So I the way I look at universe is, you know, to me it's kind of God mode, right? Where you're like, I'm in control of all this. I can control, like, you know, my ratings and you know, changing my attributes, and, you know, just you have full control over everything, right? Where MyGM, there's limitations, right? Like, you're basically Vince McMahon is the one basically running the show, and you're a GM, or let's say in our case, it's Triple H, and you're underneath him, or other GMs from our past. Like, you're like, okay, I'm going to select them, and now I'm going to run my show, and now I have someone who is basically judging whether I'm doing a good job or not. Right. And so once you take that approach, now there's a game there, right? Like, where we gamified it. So it's just like, okay, now go and draft your superstars, and here's your ratings, and here's how much money you're generating. Oh, you don't have that much money, you can't put on this type of show, right? And so, or you can't sign these superstars, right? So there's handcuffs on you, and there's someone watching you and grading you, and the fans. Christina and I were talking about this. Like, the fans are watching and commenting on how well you're doing in our little social media feed on the side, right? Like, there's so much there. And if you want to be that evil GM where you don't like how, this matchup, and you think you might want to lend a hand to someone, guess what? I'm going to go into that match, interfere as the GM, and watch ringside. And if I don't like what's going on, I'm going to distract the ref, maybe throw in a chair or do whatever, right? So again, like, it's a totally separate mode. And yes, you still can go and play the matches. You can simulate, you can interfere, and even spectate using, this spectate is exclusive to MyGM, where you have these predetermined cameras. So now you're like someone in the camera, or in, a certain area in the arena, cycling through different camera angles and just watching and changing on the fly, right? So, like, to me, it's a totally separate mode. And a totally separate game. And Christina, I know you played it a lot, and I know you have your own opinions about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, with that, yeah. So you have these different options of like the three types of amount of weeks you want to choose, either like 15, 25, or 50 weeks overall. And as you go through it, like, the idea behind building this is that you definitely want to be able to build a very balanced team, and we provide the option for players to, hey, auto build your roster so that you have a balanced team, or you can go through and draft superstars yourself. And also, you'll have, as Lynell said, there's different aspects after the match of how your match is broken down, and Triple H will give you feedback, and so the community via social media will also give you feedback as to what match types work, what match types don't work, or give you feedback on your pairing. And it feels very, when Triple H is giving you that the the advice on how to build your matches, you're like, oh man, you're like really looking out for me. This is awesome. And when you're getting some feedback from the player community or from the community itself, it's like, oh man, they're really disappointed in me. And you get to see you're each week you have these different commissioner goals to meet as well, and you're able to either upgrade your different matches based off of that, or just upgrade be able to draft free agents and legends as well based off of meeting those goals too. So,
or an enhancement talent as well.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Enhancement talent. I'm gonna the official term.
So if I'm understanding correctly, and I really did have this question about like how do they differ. GM mode is very similar to franchise mode in like, you know, another type of sports game or whatever, where your objective is to take your team, your organization, and have them experience success against essentially CPU operated opponents, which in this situation is if you are over Raw, then you are competing with SmackDown and you're competing for ratings and that whole thing. And you're able to like you said, spectate or whatever. And if you are noticing that you may be down in ratings or interest, you might choose to interject yourself or affect something in an hope to spike or improve whatever the metrics are that you're being judged on.
Yes. And the only thing that you would like to hear is that it's not just against the CPU. You can play against another person.
Okay. So it can be like head to head MyGM.
Yes. So Christina and I will she'll pick SmackDown. She'll be she'll run SmackDown. I'll run Raw, and we can both draft and sit there and watch and look at the results, or like decide to play one of the matches. So like it's definitely some co-op there.
And is that couch co-op only, or is there an online component there?
Online, so it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily online. Like you can go and search for someone to go find and on the lobby, but like you can play against people on your friends list.
Got it. Okay, that's definitely cool. And that, because I'm always thinking just fun, and then I'm also thinking content creation with the different camera angles that you're doing. So when you do different spectator modes, do you have an access to how much of the HUD is showing when you're in those different spectator modes?
Yeah, so we have the option to like hide the controls. So we're the tip control, similar like in highlight and replay. And then you can also in the game options choose to hide HUD. And it'll listen to that, that setting that you have in your overall settings. Okay.
And then in universe mode, which is still somewhat similar, but what is different is there are no restrictions. It is a complete kind of like sandbox mode for you to do whatever you want there, and there are no metrics. The only thing that your objective is here is to just have as much fun as you can have having complete control over the entire WWE universe.
Yes and no.
Okay.
We did add superstar mode so basically it's player lock. So like you can choose to do the traditional, what you have just described with universe mode, or the superstar mode. So like if you want to choose, Charlotte Flair and just focus on Charlotte Flair, not have any control over anything else and just play through a cool story as Charlotte, or you want to switch it up and be, Becky or Bailey, like that is now a thing. Okay, cool. I dig it. So here's something on presentation, a question that I have. The replay suite. I've always wanted it to be a little bit more expanded, because just from a content creator standpoint, and then even just from a fun standpoint, like sometimes there'll be a sequence that happened in the match and you want to be able to like show it from a certain angle, zoom in, take images and like screenshots and stuff like that. I think it's really dope for sharing on social media. Like, man, like if something, like I can just imagine content creators before Raw putting up images that they constructed in the replay suite, and then like dropping those before Raw, and then even after Raw, maybe they reenacted something that they saw. Have you done anything to kind of expand on the replay suite? Unfortunately, no. It's one of the things that we know, like there's a ton of traction with what you said, like, exposing more controls and having more like presets and things like that, or like just, just more functionality. And unfortunately, we just didn't have, with everything on our plate that we decided to touch, we just didn't have the capacity to really put a lot of effort into redesigning, because that's what it would have taken. It's just a whole redesign of that whole system. And so, I'm listening, but this year, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, I mean, I get, some of this stuff is, not necessarily like make or break for the game, but it's good to know, I think expectations are good just to understand where we are and, what's there. So I know that we didn't mention create a story, which I personally never really used, because there's very few creation tools that intimidate me. Options excite me, even if I can't even get to them all. I just like having the big thing. So the creative story can you talk about some of the challenges in delivering that? I can kind of imagine some of them, but can you talk about some of the challenges in doing that?
I mean, it's a whole, we basically, when, we built 2K20, we had to basically create a whole brand new tool for our developers to use to create stories for My Career and for Showcase, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was just for developers, right? Where we have full control and tools in order to like dig into the rest of our code, right? Mm-hmm. Now, to expose that same kind of functionality for a user, to where, like you're saying, like where it's not intimidating, where yet they have full control, is a huge monumental task. And we know that that's something that you guys want, but we need to figure out, like, okay, let's create our tools to the best of our abilities and figure out what we can actually offer as, a service, right? Because I think, when we looked at, the previous iterations, and you look at like the user interface, or just the friction and that it caused for anyone to just jump in and get familiar with those tools, it was just massive, right? And so you saw, what you ended up seeing was just some guys and girls who were really good at creating content, and then they were the only ones populating it, right? And they were just like, okay, everyone else, they played it, but no one wanted to create it, right? And so we need to get to a place where, and I believe what we have done that, in this year with 2K22, like we refined our tools so that our developers can create, the content that you guys are wanting with all of these different types of modes, but at the same time, also in the back of our mind is like, okay, how would we create this for a user? How would we present this to a user? What would they have access to? Like, how do we, figure out, like, how to branch and do all these things where we do it in one way off for our side? Like, can that also be exposed to the user? And if not, like, how would we change our tools, or take a, you almost want to like write a translator to take the, what we do and all our content, all our cuts, and change it into a format to where it gets spit out for a user to control, right? So it's a difficult challenge, and we know that fans want it, but it's something that we always are thinking about.
Yeah, I was thinking about, like, and here I'm gonna go into one of those things, Christina. I'm sorry for 1 second. Lynell knows what I'm gonna do. So I was thinking, like, if it's like, just like a create a scene kind of thing. And I know this is like a down the road kind of a concept, but like if you could create a scene with different props, you just place the props wherever, you put it in whatever background environment you want to do. And you, even if like you added more props and backgrounds through the DLC drops later on in the year, like I think like a create a scene or scene director feature would be something people would just like love, right? So, and that is a part of like creating your own stories or whatever in universe mode. It's like, I created this scene, I was able to take this particular character and place him here, take this particular character, place her here, and and I essentially directed the scene, and I said, this is what happened. And then that becomes like the cut scene. And it's like, I mean, I can just imagine people doing like WWE 2K22 weekly shows on YouTube with scene director and like killing it with it. That's like ultimately what I see. Hopefully that, does that sound like that's even remotely feasible in the next 5 years or something like that?
Just know that some of the things that you just said, we don't even have access to with our tools, right? So like once we add that functionality to where we can easily drop and you know, like, because here's the thing, like, you know, like you said, like, oh, I want to place this person here. Are they stationary? Can they walk? Or if not, now what happens when they walk into this chair? Do they just start like warping out of the scene, doing the lean, like smooth criminal? Like what happens, right? So like, there's all these things you have to think about from a design standpoint and break down like, all right, you know, this is a picture, but how does it break? Because we know that you guys, you know,
somebody gonna fall through something.
Someone's, you know, it's like, oh, there's no ground here. They just fall and the camera just goes until they keep falling, you know, like, so like there's all of these things that we have to think about as developers and be like, all right, you know, this is a great thing. This is a great idea, but how do we make it real to where it's bulletproof, right? Or close to it, right? And that's the thing is, you know, it takes a lot of time and effort to like come up with like the right, you know, the right thing. And to me, it's like, it's never going to be perfect on its first iteration, but it has to be good enough, right? To where people just don't get turned off by it on that first experience, right? Because once you put it out there and they're just like, nah, I'm good. Like I'll never, even though we might improve it the following year, that it takes a lot for you to earn that goodwill back.
Yeah, it's true. It's true because you know people just tend to like they enjoy hating things. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. But so yeah, all right. So I want to ask about MyRise, which is the evolution of the My Career concept. Are we using our own creative wrestlers? How does that start? How does that experience start?
Yeah, so you basically walk into the PC and you're getting your shot, right? And so you're figuring out who you are, and one of the first things that we allow you to define is your background, right? Like, what was your background? Were you an MMA fighter who wants to dip their toe into the sports and the world of sports entertainment, or are you a former athlete or movie star? And once you select that, you go into your customizations, define the look of your character. And then that choice that you made will dictate the type of conversations you're going to have with not only superstars, but like, the executive, because that they remember what your background is. It will affect like how social media responds to you. So like, to me, and it's all about like, you having a voice, and you can also like respond in a negative way or a positive way to those things. And the people will respond, and the game will recognize what trajectory and path you're on, right? Is this guy of a heel, or is he a face, right? So it's those things that we're taking into account when walking through MyRise. And we this year we also have separate male and female storylines, right? So like you could have a different background for your male, different background for your female, just to see, or replay it as a different background, just to see what type of choices you have. So like there's a lot of depth there that to me is kind of like why we went down this path with the evolution of MyRise. It's like your rise to superstardom as a superstar in the WWE.
Cool. Last question, and I'm gonna let you guys go because I know you're still in the midst of it. The game doesn't come out until March 11th, so but we still got some development time that we're working on. Right,
we're putting on our exterminator hats and our white gloves to polish and fix bugs, and so like that's what we're focused on. Like we feel good about it.
Yeah. So the invasion feature, is that back for MyRise? Because I know that was in My Career. Is that going to be in this year?
No. The thing that we did introduce is you will have the ability to choose what path you want to start off on. So like after you make it out of the performance center, you'll do an evaluation and be like, all right, which brand do you want to go to? Do you want to go to NXT, SmackDown, or Raw, right? And so like you'll have that choice, but then you can also change, during the story, and like you're like, what, I'm not happy on Raw, I'm gonna go to SmackDown. So like there's a lot of choice there, but not necessarily an invasion angle.
Okay, no, I meant like how somebody on your friends list could come in to your.
Oh yeah. It's like the old. You talking about the old one? Yeah, no, that's not.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to just get a good idea, but I mean, overall, man, I'm really excited about playing the game. Really excited about getting a my hands on all of the components. I definitely appreciate you guys taking your time to talk to me today and just kind of getting a deeper understanding of what's on the way. So like I said, it's much appreciated, and hopefully we get a chance to talk again sometime soon.
I want to talk to you after you play, Brian. Like I want to see you play, because I love watching you play. I do.
Yeah, maybe I'll live stream it, and I'll make sure I use a face cam. I'm horrible playing the game in live stream though. I don't know. I think I'm too old to multitask or something. I'm not good at it. Like, so if I'm streaming, it has to be all about my personality, because the gameplay is not going to be very good.
I just want to see you laugh.
That'll happen. You'll see that. You'll see that.
Like I'll never forget. Like when you were doing the randomizer. That's why I was like, oh no, that's my dog.
I can stream that, and I'll be at top notch quality if I'm streaming randomizer. You'll get the best. But yes, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.